Good evening to all our ACDP members and our Facebook friends and family and network. We have a slight challenge this evening, but I want to welcome you while our president, our deputy president, is finding a place where they can join this live stream too. If you can give us a few minutes for them to join us, we will immediately start when the president is on. In the meantime, will be giving you just a very quick breakdown of our day here in the Northern Cape, where I have had an oversight in the Warrenton area, the Maracheng municipality. If you are here and if you are joining us, will you indicate so that we can see you and that we can welcome you this evening? I am very, very excited to share some news with you on the Bellable, what has happened and transpired till now, and also, as I said, to give you some update about what is happening here in the Northern Cape and how the ACDP is pressing very hard for good governance, and where there are issues in municipalities, we are responding to make sure that our people are getting the services that they need. I see we are joined by one Mr. Mputi, my brother. Thank you to you too. Thank you for joining us. And thank you to Kathy Stewart. Thank you for joining us this evening. Mareika Neethling, thank you so much. You are watching from Nelson Mandela Bay. Thank you for joining us. I want more of our ACDP family to come on and to join us. I see Van der Bijl Meth. Yes, good evening. Also one of our supporters and one of our very active members of the ACDP. Thank you so much for joining us. Good evening. Good evening. For all of our people on the platform, make sure that you let your network know, your friends know. We have some news to share with you. Things are heating up, as they say. Things are heating up. And I have Mr. Sefako. Good evening. Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us. Mama Wonky Konko. God bless you. It is very nice to see you on the platform. Yes, good evening. And then my very beautiful daughter, good evening there from Cape Town. Good evening, Nicole Sukers. And I see our SecGen on. Good evening, SecGen. Good evening. Let's get our people on. We've got some news. Good evening to the president and honorable ACDP councillors. Thank you so much, my brother. Thank you for that. And there is our leaders. Mr. President, I tried my best to hold the fort for you and for our deputy president.
Lovely. Good evening. Nice to see you, Mari.
Good evening, Mari.
Good evening, sir. I hand over to you, sir.
Well, to our friends, our members, and all those who want to spend an hour with us tonight, we say to you, welcome. I must first apologize for the delay. We had a power cut. We don't know what happened. The whole floor of where our offices are don't have lights. From 7 o'clock until now, so we had to make a plan and switch offices. You can see the background. You are not used to this kind of background behind us, but it's because we had to find a place urgently so that we could have this meeting tonight. So welcome. I'm glad my deputy is here with me.
Thank you.
I understand he did a great job last week. Always so good to be with him because he's a great, great man.
Thank you, sir.
So ACDP leadership, all those who have tuned in tonight, Thank you very much. I see Shirel. Good evening, Shirel. She says, good evening, President, Deputy President. Nicole Sukers. Hoyenand, Nicole. Hoyenand. And the others, as they still sleeping, Joy Peterson. Welcome, Joy Peterson. All right, let's move in because we have lost some time. We are going to start with a very interesting story from the Eastern Cape. The Eastern Cape, we have an MMC, a councillor who is an MMC for electricity and energy. He is Councillor Lance Grootboom. The Lord gave him an idea regarding how to mitigate load shedding because there were big businesses that were threatening to pull out of the Eastern Cape to go to, specifically PE where he is, to go to places where they will have stable electricity because their businesses were suffering. They could not produce and meet their targets. You talk about Volkswagen, you talk about Continental Tires, tire companies, manufacturing companies. They were all threatening to pull out of Port Elizabeth and other cities in the Eastern Cape. So the Lord gave him an idea. And we have him with us tonight because we want you all to hear that the Lord can give ideas that can help make South Africa work.
Yeah.
So when we say the ACDP has solutions, all those who don't know us must take us seriously. ACDP members, you need to start saying solution. We have solutions. So tonight we are going to have a Councillor MMC Lance Grootboom who will tell us how he is fighting this load shedding and ensuring that big business is able to make profit even during load shedding. So MMC Lance, welcome, sir, and thank you for the great work you're doing in the Eastern Cape, in Nelson Mandela Basin.
Good evening, President and Deputy President, and our leaders that is online this evening. It is a privilege being here this evening and sharing the work that ACDP has been doing in Nelson Mandela Bay, in our coalition government, in our city.
Go ahead, sir. Tell your story. Tell the story. What have you done?
Yes.
That has
Yes.
even caught the attention of the DA's federal leader. And she's trying her luck. I understand she's trying her luck, but she's not going to succeed. You are a godly man. You are home. You are going nowhere.
Yes, President. President, yes, like I said, we are in a coalition and we are in a 10-party coalition, and the ACDP is heading the portfolio for electricity and energy in the city. And what a challenging time we are having in that portfolio. And I believe that God has put us specifically at this specific time to be there in order to lead and to make sure that the economy of Nelson Mandela Bay is going on. Now, what we've done, because we were impacted by the load shedding during October last year, when we were still in stage 5 and 6, and it had a huge impact on the businesses in our city. We came up with a short-term, a medium-term, and a long-term strategy to ensure that we protect businesses in our city, we protect job security in our city, and we make sure that the economy is running in our city. So we collaborated with the business chamber here in Nelson Mandela Bay, and we decided to work together. We started a committee or a task team that deals specifically with load shedding and with electricity efficiency. And I'm the chairperson of that task team. And that is where we collaborate and we look at ways of how we can assist businesses and look at the municipality at large, where we see how we can protect jobs in the city. Now, when we took over that portfolio, it was in a very bad state. And we had a number of challenges. And one of the biggest challenges was that the businesses did not have an open door to the municipality. And we basically relaxed that and make sure that businesses had an open door to my office and we can talk at any time. So what we've done, and because businesses were informing us that they had a huge challenge, and to give our listeners a understanding of the impact of load shedding in Nelson Mandela Bay, one must understand that 41% of the automotive industry is basically residing in Nelson Mandela Bay. So the 41% of that employment is sitting with us. Then we are also the biggest employer when we look at component manufacturers in Nelson Mandela Bay, in fact, in the Eastern Cape. So it has the largest automotive manufacturing businesses in South Africa, which is sitting in Nelson Mandela Bay. And then if you look at our economy, you will see that we 2/3 of Moha and those activities are also placed in Nelson Mandela Bay. So we've got some big industries. We've got some large agriculture sectors here, for example, like your Sovereign Foods and your dairy groups. Those are big businesses. Then we have major manufacturing companies like your Coke Aspen and your Coca-Cola. There is all sitting here, and a number of catalytic converter industries that is also sitting with us. So basically, most of these businesses are sitting here in Nelson Mandela Bay, and they are the suppliers of big businesses like your BMW, your Ford, and your Toyota that sit in other metro municipalities in our country. So load shedding had a huge impact on them and their operations. So they did a survey and they came up and they said, listen, 90% of our local manufacturers has been halted, investment has been halted, and the plans to expand has also been halted. They even said to me that 75% of the manufacturers have been forced to implement short time. And so people were working short time. And they told us that with the load shedding kicking in, that almost 18% of manufacturers have cut on jobs. So the impact was great, and there was no way that we can attract investment into our city. We have to come up with plans to retain the current investment that we have in order to save jobs. So it was thinking out of the box. It was praying and asking God for wisdom, is getting our teams out, especially in electricity and energy, our technical teams and all of our guys to come together and say and see how can we better protect businesses, including our residents, to make sure we limit load shedding in the city. So what we've done is that we came up with a load shedding schedule. So like I said, there was a short-term, medium-term, and a long-term plan. So what we've done is we said, okay, let's look at what is our average demand? What do we draw on a daily basis? Now, Nelson Mandela Bay draws about 530 megawatts of power per day. Now, one stage is 5% of our load. That means one stage will be 26 megawatts of power. A second stage will be 53 megawatts, and it goes up every time by 5%. So if we hit stage 8, we have to be shed by 231 megawatts of power, which is a lot, which is half of our load that we carry in a day. So we had to see how can we make sure that we protect businesses, even keeping hospitals and our pump stations, our water pump stations running. So what we've done is to protect that, we look at various ways. And these are the things that was under my leadership and which we specifically looked at because we explore ideas. And one of the major ideas was that we looked at a schedule where we looked at how can we shed the residents, our domestic customers. So what we have a 2.5 hour schedule that we use in order to shed our residents. So they are shedded for 2.5 hours depending on the stage. Then what we've done for businesses and the protection of businesses, between stage 1 and 4, we provided a protection. We're not shedding them at all. Our major industries, we don't shed them between stage 1 and 4. And then what we've done is, if we go to stage 5, we have implemented what we call a 24-hour voluntary load shedding. Now, what that basically means is, when we hit stage 5, companies can switch themselves off on a 24-hour, 8-day cycle. That means when we stage 5, companies are only shedded once in a week. And that means that they can better plan their operations, and there's not just that automatic switching off of their businesses. So they were protected even at stage 5, going into stage 6. But because stage 6 has been very new to us, we are still exploring other ideas of how we can protect them more, which I will discuss a little bit later on. But what we've also done, because we have to manage and balance the load that we are carrying in order to protect businesses. Now, we have on our 24-hour voluntary load shedding about 50 large businesses that we are protecting to make sure that the livelihoods in our city is also protected. So what we've done, we've looked at various ways, and we have 84 what we call intensive ripple control geysers, which is installed in our domestic homes in the city. Now, these geyser controls, what they do is we can switch them off, and we can see from a central position, because it's centralized. And when we switch it off, we can see a drop of the load by 50 megawatts. So we use that now as a stage, because that allows us to at least mitigate against 2 stages of load shedding. And we have been implementing that very successful. What we've also done, we've looked at load curtailment. And load curtailment is discussed, you hear it all over the news. And we've looked at load curtailment, but we apply load curtailment only to companies which are qualifying and who wants to be part of that. Now, this is a model we are still exploring, and it's a model we want to introduce when we go stage 6, 7, and 8. But basically what it means for businesses is that we start shedding them from stage 1, but in percentages. So basically we reduce automatically on increment or percentages on the average demand of that business operations, whether it's on their production. But basically what it means, if they are at stage 6, we can still allow them to produce up to 60% of their production. Even if they go on stage 8, they will still be able to produce. So that is load curtailment, and we ask them to switch off on non-essential loads like your geysers, like your air conditioners. All of that we have come up, and we are working together to see how we can assist various businesses that wants to take part in this type of load curtailment model to protect their operations and to make sure that we protect the jobs. Then we have what we call load limiting. Now, load limiting is also an interesting concept, and we're going to do a pilot project we're running in our communities. And that pilot is basically, what we do is you must have a smart meter installed into your home. And what we can do is, when it's load shedding, we put up a schedule where we talk to your smart meter to reduce the amps in that meter. For example, if that meter is 60, it's got 60 amps, we can reduce that amps to 40 amps. Then it means that the output of your electricity on the other side will be restricted, meaning that you won't be able to put on some hungry appliances like your stove or your geyser, because it will trip, but it will allow you to keep on the lights in the evenings, and your TV and your router, etc., especially for those customers that cannot afford solar panels. We can still keep the lights on even if it's load shedding. But this is a concept that we are like I said, we're running it through a pilot because we want residents to participate. And we can also control that meter from a central position. So that is what we are looking at. And another model we've introduced And we will hear a lot that Cape Town says that they are buying power and they are the first to buy power from their own customers. Nelson Mandela Bay has also been doing that. In fact, we've got 600 registered SSEG customers. Those are your small scale embedded generation customers. We've got about 600 registered. We know there are more in the city, but we are approaching them. But what we've given our small embedded customers is a 60% rebate for electricity that they put back into the grid. So we can basically say we are also buying power from our own customers through this type of system. So what we get from that is already 26 megawatts of power that is coming into our grid. And we are looking to utilize now that when Eskom's demand is very high. So that is one of them. And then in terms of our medium term, and this is very interesting because I have to say this, Mr. President, that even the minister, when he was here 2 weeks ago, were very impressed with these strategies. And what we have in Nelson Mandela Bay is a gas turbine. Now, this gas turbine sits at the back of our electricity department, and it has basically become just a piece of ornament that's sitting there. It was built in 1982, and it was last operational somewhere in 2010, just during the World Cup. And for now, it's not used anymore. So we have been writing to the Minister of Electricity to say, help us financially to get that gas plant operational. We've also been engaging with businesses like Volkswagen, Isuzu, and all those businesses to say, let's participate, let's get that plant operational and use it when we hit stage 6, 7, or 8, whatever will happen with load shedding for now in the medium term. And we are now already looking at getting that plant up. We have appointed a specialist to give us an assessment so that we can do a feasibility study on it in order to see what it will cost us in terms of capital and operational to get it running. And this is something that we want to utilize as quickly as possible in order to make sure that we get more generation locally into our grid. And then another thing we've done, Mr. President, is wheeling agreements. And wheeling is a little bit a tough one for municipalities because it's new. You will have to use your infrastructure and to allow other companies to wheel electricity through it. But we have started a pilot with wheeling, and that is still operational. And we have also entered into use of system agreements with other customers where we will allow them to wheel electricity to our grid to a customer here in Nelson Mandela Bay. So our customers would also be able to buy power from independent power producers, which will not be us, but they will use our grid to do that. And we currently have applications of more than 80 megawatts of power that we have received that wants to wheel power through our grid. Now, what we've also done, and I think to me, this is one of the exciting ones that I'm looking forward to, and it will be coming up just before the local elections in 2026. And it's more a long-term strategy because what we want to do is we entered into a triple P with Hive Hydrogen. We signed a memorandum of understanding, and we now are going to go into what we call a banking agreement. They are running a what they call a hydrogen renewable plant, which is combination of solar and wind, and they will be putting that power to give. Basically, they will give that power to us during the day for free, which is about 300 megawatts. That is half our load. 300 megawatts of power they will give us for free, and we will give them in return when their storage capacity is very low. They will give us back we will have to give them back, 250, because that's what they need between 12 o'clock in the morning. It's in the morning hours and just before our peak starts. So that will basically change the game for us in Nelson Mandela Bay and allow Nelson Mandela Bay to be the first with that amount of renewable that's going through the grid. And this will obviously assist with our targets of making sure that we meet our carbon targets that is set out there, that is affecting pollution and so forth and so forth. So we want to reduce our carbon footprint in the city. So what we are also doing now is we are going on procurement to buy power also from IPPs, and we are going to advertise very soon, and we're planning to buy about 170 megawatts of power. So with all these plans in place, the intention of this is to get away from Eskom, to break our reliance from Eskom. But I think with the strategies that we've put in place now, just now, that has protected businesses in such a way that more than 50 businesses did not close its doors now during even facing stage 6. And like I said earlier, we are exploring on what we call the load curtailment model, and we are now engaging with companies like your Continental, like your Firestone, and basically companies with big boilers that cannot be switched off because of their up and down time. And we are now looking at how can we bring them in and make sure that they still produce and produce even when it's stage 8, if we're going to go there. So we have put all these mitigating measures in place to make sure that businesses are operating. And for now, it has definitely protected jobs and livelihoods in our city. Over to you. Yes, Mr. President.
Well done. Yeah. Well done. Well done. Well done. We are grateful to the Lord for giving you those ideas. Many other challenges we are facing in the country, we believe that the Lord is going to use his servants who have an ear to hear what the Lord is saying, will get inspiration from him in order to provide solutions to our country. Now, obviously, I forgot to introduce my colleague here, my co-pilot, my Deputy President, Honorable Wayne Three, who also is doing a great job. But before I give him an opportunity to also say something that is very close to our hearts, very important, about expropriation of land without compensation. You know, people who want to do that obviously are thieves who want to steal what does not belong to them. They say in the interest of communities, but we know they are just stealing. Is not in the interest of communities because they've made many promises to help communities, and those promises have never been fulfilled because the money they were supposed to use has gone to their pockets. So before I allow my colleague to say something about that, Marisukers went to Warrington in the Northern Cape. She went there because she was requested to come and help. Do you realize that there are people who know that ACDP has capable soldiers, capable MPs, capable councillors who they look up to for assistance, while others are taking away from people, stealing and looting and doing all those things? We have councillors that care for the people. The word care, C-A-R-E, is going to characterize our work as the ACDP. People should know that we are people who care because the Lord cares also. So Mary was requested to come and help because people have been going there for months without water. And so they said, please come and help. So we want Mary to tell us the story, including the handling and also maybe an assault that was directed at her. And obviously we said she must open a case of assault. And I'm trusting that she has done that because these guys must know that we also know our rights. And when it is necessary, we use those rights. So nobody has the right to attack somebody, particularly when they're doing the job. She went there to go and help solve a problem, and those who were involved in stealing try to block her.
What, man?
Mary, thank you very much for what you have done. And sorry if they didn't handle you or didn't treat you as a lady, but they were doing a great job. And let's hear what happened in the Northern Cape, in Warrington.
Yes, sir. Yes, Mr. President. The issues in Warrington started in February. The floods came down and the Vaal River broke its bank. It went over its banks, and there was significant damage to the water infrastructure that caused water to be interrupted. And the municipality, the whole of Marageng municipality, water was cut off, and people has been without water for 4 months. I learned today, and not the initial 3 months that I thought. So we met with community leaders on Monday after they initially contacted the ACDP and then lodged a complaint with my office. They've been without water for 3 months. At that stage, they said, and that when I spoke to them on Monday, I realized the extent of the crisis. That one of the things that the municipality has done after the community has complained and protested, the municipality took out an interdict the community to prevent them from protesting, from demanding answers on projects that has been long-standing in terms of the water of Warrington. The floods is not the only water problem. It didn't start with the floods, the problem with water. It started already 3-4 years ago, when 84 million rand was allocated for the water treatment plant to be upgraded here in Warrington for better quality water and for better access to water for community. That project, according to the community on Monday, told me that project stood still. Nothing is happening with the project, and the municipality is refusing to be transparent and give a report on where the money went and what is happening, the status of the project. Then with the water flood damage, 5.5 million, the municipality actually requested 15 million, but 5.5 was given for them to implement an interim solution for water to be restored to Warrington. That 5.5 million project came to a standstill last week after the DA councillor and the municipality made a statement to say as soon as the contractor is appointed, it would only take 14 days and water would be restored with an interim solution. I should also add for our supporters and audience that there was also an 800,000 that was allocated for interim emergency water distribution. Now, the interim water distribution to the townships was very poor, ineffective, and badly organized, so that people needed to walk as far as 20 kilometers to go and get to water points. And many poor people are now even buying water from their neighbors who has boreholes in their houses, and you will need to pay 5 rand per liter for water. And those who has money now need to buy from entrepreneurs, let's say entrepreneurs, people that has now started to distribute water, and you need to pay 250 rand per container. Now you need to understand that we're talking about poor and vulnerable people that are grant dependent, and there is a high unemployment rate in Warrington, as is with most of the Northern Cape. And so people are needing to buy water because of the ineffective water distribution plan, that the emergency water distribution plan. And then this 5.5 million that was allocated for the interim solution, and people has told me that this is standing still. So today I went for an unannounced oversight to the water treatment plant and to see the interim water solution that is coming, pulling water from the Vaal for water distribution to reconnect water to the municipality. And when we arrived there were no workers on site. The pipes of that 5.5 million that was bought was lying in the middle of the water, the Vaal River, some of it on the side, no worker in sight. We then went to the water treatment plant where access was refused. That workers stopped me from entering the water treatment plant and told me that I need permission. I told them that the role of Parliament and who it is that, why it is that I was there on behalf of the community to look at the complaint and do proper oversight to see what has happened with the upgrade of this 84 million, as well as what is happening with the interim water solution that, according to the municipality, would have taken 14 days, and they didn't want to let me in. Well, I forced to get into the water plant. I was then accosted by a 6'4" man, big man, that took me, pushed me back, and he assaulted me, literally took me, pushed me against, and pulled me up against a gate, to stop me from entering the gate, and told me that he will show me how he can silence a woman. So I went, the police came, and I have laid a case. I demanded to re-enter that water treatment plant. I want to see what's happening. I was accompanied by my husband, who is the provincial leader of the Northern Cape, and we both went into the plant with the media to go and see. They kept me there, Mr. President, for an hour. I missed my plane. And they kept me there, didn't want me to enter, further than the point that I was already into the plant. And then I realized why. When I pressed forward, went into the plant, there was nothing. 84 million rand of taxpayers' money that was put into this plant. And it is a project that is standing there as a massive failure of a government that interdicts its own people, community. It interdicts the community from demanding answers from the elected leaders who are constitutionally mandated to service our communities. The ANC government, municipality, interdicted our community from getting the answers that they deserve in terms of the money spent on water treatment to upgrade upgrade the water treatment plant for better quality water and access. Mr. President, it is a sin what is allowed to happen here, a sin. And I said today to the community that the ACDP delegation will come to Warrington. We are sending an urgent letter to the Minister of Kochta, as well as the Minister of Water and Sanitation. On top of that, we are taking a petition to Parliament to demand how a government a democratically elected government can, in this 30th year of our democracy, interdict a community from getting the answers that they want. That is number one. And number two, we are laying a charge with the public protector for the fact that this community has been without water for 4 months. And then, Mr. President, since Monday, these people has not received any water. Mr. President, it is heartbreaking. I had to go and see at houses where sick people with cancer can't wash themselves. The quality of the water is so bad that these people's conditions are worsening. I have had people with polio that came out with crutches to come to the meeting to address me today, to say that no one cares. We have spoken for months. We have appealed. We have appealed to people. No one responds to us. The Northern Cape is sick with corruption. It is sick with corruption. And when the media spoke to me today to say that it is not just this municipality, there's a mafia that operates here, that stops people. Mr. President, I had men accosting me, telling me that that first of all, as a parliamentarian, I shouldn't think that I have special powers or that I am anything special to come and ask them questions. It's like a mafia is operating here in Warrington. It's a disgrace.
Well done also, Marie. Well done. The people of South Africa should know that there are people who care in the ACDP.
Yeah.
The mafias, all structures of government are infiltrated by mafias. And it is government's fault that that is the case. We will be looking, among other things, next week, proofs that government creates problems. The majority of problems we have in the country are created by government, and government wants to be seen, particularly closer to the elections, to be solving problems, to be dealing with what they themselves have caused. So people are suffering because of a government that is not caring, a government that allows mafias to infiltrate every structures and to infiltrate and cause sufferings and to the people who deserve proper service delivery. So thank you very much for what we have done. We will go there. Maybe next week we'll see. I'll talk to the DP and see how we do it, but we are not going to let go. We are not going to let go. We'll go back to Warrington with you, Marie, to show the people that we are supporting you in what you're doing, because this is what is expected of members of parliament throughout this country. So I'm now going to ask my colleague next to me with this beautiful, what color is this? Okay, he looks so handsome. So I'm going to let him. Yeah. What?
Rust.
Oh, rust. You are not rusted, but you're not rusted. Yeah? Okay, rust. Okay. He's going to share with us about expropriation of land. That's one of the issues that we have been fighting. We are saying we want to leave an inheritance for our children and children's children, according to scriptures. So if government wants to have the right to take land that we paid for, or land that we receive as an inheritance from our parents, that is totally unacceptable. It is, again, another way of stealing from people. But what has the ACDP done? My colleague will be sharing with us what we have done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Let me perhaps go back a bit by indicating that we've had, and I'm going to not mention political parties by name because I don't want to give them airtime on our space. We've had the Red Berets who were shouting for expropriation of land without compensation. They've been making that call in Parliament. They've been almost forcing the hand of the ANC and positioning themselves as the champion of the people who want their land back. So what that did is that it actually forced the ANC to a large extent to take over that particular call. The ANC then went and initiated what they called a change and an amendment to Section 25 of the Constitution. An ad hoc committee was established to look at amending Section 25 of the Constitution. They said they wanted to make explicit what is implicit, to make very known what is implied within the Constitution, where expropriation without compensation would be permissible. The Constitution, however, does not allow expropriation without compensation. So the ruling party then wanted to amend Section 25 of the Constitution. So there was a process, and I was one of the members representing the ACDP on the ad hoc committee to amend Section 25 of the Constitution. The position of the ACDP was very clear that there is sufficient legislation in place, sufficient legislation to deal with the restoration of land to South African citizens. Now, the ACDP has consistently said that we have not been opposed to restoring land to those where land was taken from them. Sure. So we're not opposed to the restoration of land, but the process needs to be fair. And so that was what we were challenging. What we challenged was the process. Now, so we opposed the expropriation amendment of Section 25 of the Constitution to make explicit what is implicit, and essentially to ensure that the Constitution would allow for expropriation without compensation. Now, the Red Berets had indicated that they wanted in the Constitution the fact that the state needs to be the custodian of all land. That's a part of their policy. I challenged them in some of the debates where they've indicated that in the debates they indicated it's the land for the people, but the Red Berets policy, if you look at their land policy, it is the state, not the people. It is the state that they want to have control over the land. So it's not land for the people, it's land for the state. So that also created a challenge between the Red Berets and the ruling party. And so when it came to Parliament, and now you needed a 2/3 majority to amend the Constitution, and so because there was this fight between the ruling party and the Red Berets and the opposition, the 2/3 majority was not achieved. Now, The ANC then used, the ruling party, then used another method. There is an old existing piece of legislation, which is the expropriation bill. This expropriation bill would allow for provinces and municipalities to expropriate, but the expropriation bill also has to be in alignment with the Constitution. And so what now the ruling party did was they looked at this old piece of legislation. They said that it needed, this old piece of legislation, apartheid piece of legislation, needed amending, where they failed to amend Section 25 of the Constitution. They then went to this piece of legislation, the expropriation bill. They resurrected it. It said it needed to be amended. And then what the ruling party did, inserted into the expropriation bill clauses which now will make expropriation without compensation possible. So expropriation without compensation will be possible is about 3 or 4 cases. If the land is lying vacant, if the owner of the land has gone AWOL, if the land is needed, or if the land is posing a health challenge. So these have now been placed within the expropriation bill to allow for expropriation without compensation, where the minister or the expropriating authority would have gives sufficient cause. Expropriation can now take place. The ACDP has consistently said that it is not necessary for those bills to be in place because there is sufficient legislation. By the way, and maybe let me conclude with this. Kgalema Motlanthe, the former president of, acting president at the time, of South Africa, he was given the task by the ruling party, a high panel land investigation to look at whether expropriation without land needs to take place and to look at land reformation and restitution in South Africa. He, in his high panel report on land, indicated that the challenges with regards to the land issue are corruption and corruption within the Department of Land Affairs. So what was happening is that even where there was supposed to be restitution of land, land was going to officials and land was going to cronies. And this is documented in Kgalema Motlanthe's high panel report. He also indicated that expropriation of land is not the panacea, expropriation without compensation is not the panacea to the land question. He goes ahead and he says, if expropriation without compensation takes place, the consequences on the economy will be too ghastly to contemplate. Now, here's a man who is within the ranks of the ruling party, who has the sense to speak to the ruling party about the economic challenges that will come if expropriation goes ahead. So the ACDP opposed expropriation without compensation. The fact that there is one sufficient legislation to deal with expropriation. Number 2, it does not make economic sense. Economically, if we look at what has taken place in Venezuela, if we look at what has taken place in Zimbabwe, if we look at what has taken place in some of our northern African neighbors, when they received independence and they applied expropriation without compensation, their economies shrank. The economies went south. And if South Africa, if we allow South Africa and the South African government, the ruling party in particular, to go ahead with this, it will have devastating consequences on our economy and affect the poorest of the poor. When a study was done and people of South Africa were asked, what are your most pressing needs? Is it land that you want? What is your most pressing needs? Top of the number 1 need was jobs, employment. The number 1 need, employment. Safety, crime, dealing with the crime issue. The land issue actually was about 5th or 6th in a survey that was done, speaking to ordinary South Africans in terms of what it is that they actually require, what is most pressing for them. And so the ruling party is certainly wanting to use this as a tool coming up for the 2024 elections. Now, We have dealt with the expropriation bill at Parliament. It has gone to the Federal Council of Provinces, where it will be further debated. Where it's currently sitting now, because it affects the provinces, it is now sitting in with the provinces. So we are appealing to you, to the provinces, where your provincial legislature calls for public hearings, to attend those public hearings and make your voice heard in terms of the expropriation without compensation. So, President, that's where that's the position. The position of the ACDP is a very clear position. It is a consistent position. It is a position that we believe is one that will assist in taking South Africans out of the quagmire that we currently face. What we need to do is to be uniting South Africans rather than dividing South Africans along the land issue.
Thank you very much, DP. We are almost at the end of our program and our discussions with you. Before we close, I have been given something to announce, particularly for the people in the Western Cape, because between the 26th and the 28th of May, there will be participation or public participation hearings on this basic education laws amendment bill. Mm-hmm. So in the area of George at the Parkelsdorp Community Hall on Friday the 26th from 14 hours to 18 hours, you'll have an opportunity to have your say. Mm-hmm. We'll make sure that you get the background of what these basic education laws are about, and so that you can go there and say, this is the position of the ACDP. And in series, on Saturday, the 27th of May, they will be having these hearings at the Montana Community Hall, Angelier Street, Wolseley, on the 27th. That's a Saturday, from 12 midday to 4 p.m. in the afternoon. And then Google it to Indoor Sports Complex. There will be a gathering there on Sunday, the 28th of May, from 12 midday to 4 p.m., 16 hours. So go and show face, go and have your say, go and say, we as the ACDP, our position is this. You're going to be sent information so that you are well informed about what is happening. So please know that your voice is important. Never ever underestimate your voice. Never ever underestimate your participation. Your participation is very important. So thank you for tonight. Thank you for tonight. And there was a notice that for further information, you must check Facebook, where there will be announcements of exactly what will be happening. For more information, times and venues, please check our Facebook page, ACDP Facebook page, and then you'll get more information. The Lord continue to bless you as you continue to pray for us. The more you pray, the healthier we are, the more bolder we become, and the more we stand for your needs and for your rights in South Africa. The Lord bless you. Thanks for tuning in tonight.
God bless you.
God bless you.